Hello, how you doing? Well, good. Hey, everybody. Yeah, that was the right thing. And I just wanted to make sure. Because I already have to. Thank you so much. Be quicker, but you know what? You're welcome.
You think to go out?
Sure.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and pinch it a little bit for the incoming chair. And ask that we go ahead and call this meeting to order. Was public notification of the meeting. Did that take place, Ms. Brown?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We do have a confirmation of a quorum. And now we will move into the oath of offices for our new and returning board members. I guess we will start with, why don't we start with our returning board members first, if we will, which is Mr. Siebels. So we'll go ahead and start with the oath of office for Mr. Siebels.
Mr. Stevens, if you would stand at the X. Can you have someone swearing? Make you stand right here? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate Ms. Barnes coming to perform the ceremony for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you'll repeat after me, Mr. Siebel. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected,
to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected.
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
I will do to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve,
and reserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, you didn't get it? You want to get back up there and take a picture?
Yeah, let's make sure we get a picture there. All right. Next, why don't we go ahead and ask Ms. Green if we could do your swearing in, if we could.
You raise your right, put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly swear or affirm
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state
according to the Constitution of the state,
to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected,
to exercise the duties of the office in which I was elected,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve,
and preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And now, if we could do the oath of office for Dr. Harris.
Is this virtual?
No,
Mine
yeah.
was virtual.
Yeah, okay, yeah, nobody goes.
Right. If you would please stand at the X.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
If you'll just raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected,
to exercise the duties of the office of which I've been elected,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. I need everybody to come sign their oath if they will.
Just wait 1 minute.
It might make it, bring them to y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Vaughn, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come and assist us with this swearing in of our officers. Thank you for Virginia.
Certainly welcome.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll be pinch-hitting for just a little bit longer. Now, I will be accepting nominations for board chair. The floor is now open for nominations.
I'd like to make a nomination.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Green?
I'd like to nominate Sylvia Harris.
Oh, okay, Ms. Green has nominated Ms. Sylvia Harrison. Dr. Green. Yes, sir, Mr. Pastor Jackson. I nominate Henry Miller. Okay, Pastor Jackson has nominated Mr. Henry Miller. Any additional nominations? Okay, is there a motion that the nomination come to a close?
I make a motion and nomination come to a close.
I second. All right, nomination comes to a close, and so now we will hold a vote on the board chair. We will start in order of nominations. All in favor of Ms. Sylvia Harrison, if you could raise your right hand. 1, 2. All in favor of Mr. Henry Miller, if you could raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mr. Miller, did you vote? Okay, and Mr. Miller, can we hear you? We can't hear you though. Are you muted? Okay, we aren't hearing you there. Okay, well, so Mr. Miller did raise his hand, so that would have been 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So congratulations, Mr. Miller. You have been nominated and elected as chair of the school board for the upcoming school year. Give a round of applause if you could. Normally what I would do is to turn it over to the chair. Since we're having some technical difficulties, I'll go ahead and continue to accept nominations for vice chair and secretary until we can get the technical difficulties resolved. So now the floor is open for nomination for board vice chair.
I'll nominate Reverend Carl Jackson. for
Oh.
vice chair.
Okay, so now we have a nomination from Mr. Darrell Davis. He nominates Reverend Carl Jackson for vice chair. Any additional nominations?
I'd like to do Sylvia Harrison again.
Yes, Ms. Green nominates Ms. Sylvia Harrison for vice chair. Any additional nominations? Okay, is there a motion nomination come to a close?
I make a motion nomination come to a close.
Okay, Ms. Harrison recommended nomination come to the close. Is there a second?
Second such motion.
All right, seconded by Dr. Harrison. So we have two nominations for vice chair. We'll take it in all of nominations. First, Reverend Carl Jackson. All in favor of Reverend Carl Jackson for vice chair, please raise your right hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 for Reverend Carl Jackson. All in favor of Ms. Sylvia Harrison, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Reverend Carl Jackson, congratulations. You've been nominated and elected as vice chair. And then I'll go ahead and take nominations for the final board position, which is board secretary. Are there any nominations for board secretary?
Dr. Green, I'd like to nominate Ms. Sylvia Harrison.
Okay, Dr. Harris nominates Ms. Sylvia Harrison for board secretary. Are there any additional nominations?
Move the nomination come to a close.
All right, nominations come to a close. Is there a second?
Second such motion.
Okay, Dr. Harris seconded that motion that nomination come to a close. All in favor of our lone nomination for board secretary, please raise your right hand. That's 7. And so congratulations, Ms. Harrison. You are our newly elected board secretary. Let's give a round of applause. Mr. Miller, is your sound back yet?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I just like to thank the board for their vote of confidence. And we're going to continue to work and make this our Fairfield family greater. And working with you, Dr. Green, and this board, we want to go higher. I know we got some challenges before us, but we work through it. At this time, I just want to thank Reverend Jackson as the vice chair, as well as Miss Sylvia Harrison as our secretary. These folks right here, they got a lot to give to our community, as well as this whole board. At this time, I would like to give it to the vice chair because we're going into executive session. I want to follow the rules. So if we could give this going into executive session to Reverend Jackson at this time.
All right. This time we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel matter.
Also moved.
Okay,
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by raising your right hand. All right, it's so ordered. We'll go into executive session, hopefully not to exceed 6:30.
Thank you so much.
Make sure your mic is on. Yeah.
Motion to exit executive session.
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion, we exit executive session.
The motion by Ms. Harrison, that we exit executive session. Is there a second?
Second, sir. Good. I second such motion.
It's been seconded by Dr. Harrison. All those in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. Right, 7 0. All right, so now we're down to the welcome and pledge of allegiance. Moment of silence.
Yeah, do the welcome.
Is your mic on, Pastor?
Yeah, hold it, might hold it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to welcome everybody to this November session of the School Board of Trustees. And at this time, and we will follow the program as it's outlined. And at this time, we will go to the welcome, the pledge of allegiance, moment of silence.
Let us all stand for the pledge of allegiance and moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
moment of silence. Thank you.
This item is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion to, Jackson. I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
I say.
Been moved by Ms. Harrison, second by Mr. Davis, that we approve the agenda as is. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That's 7 0. And that brings us down to our board minutes. And the superintendent recommends the board approve the minutes from the October regular call board meeting. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Ms. Harrison,
I recommend we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve the minutes from the October regular board meeting.
a second.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the October board meeting. Are you ready for the question? For discussion? Prepare to vote, all in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Next, superintendent's report. Update, announcements.
Council Jackson, members of the board, all I can say is it has been an absolutely marvelous year. And all I can say is it's been an absolutely marvelous year. And so some people would say, wow, you're saying that in the era of a pandemic. And I said, absolutely, I have. We recognize that there have been some absolutely uncertain times we're in. We are encountering and overcoming obstacles that we never imagined would exist. But I want to say once again how absolutely proud I am of the faculty and staff, of our students, of everyone navigating these very challenging times. And we would not have been able to get through these first 9 weeks plus without the just tremendous work ethic and support and confidence of everyone who is a part of the Fairfield family. Let me give a couple of highlights. First of all, we'd like to recognize the Fairfield Middle School football team who finished 4-2 this year. And they had an absolutely outstanding year. The couple of games that they lost were very close. But we'd like to thank Coach Wilkins and his staff for doing an excellent job of working with our young Griffins. The varsity football team had another great year. They won the region, which is always great. In the first round of the playoff, we ended up challenging Wren High School. An interesting story. Wren High School won the 4A state championship on last year, and then dropped down to 3A this year. So we ended up playing the 4A state champion from last year in first round of the playoffs, and it was a barn burner. We ended up losing that one 28-26 by 2 points, but our young men played their hearts out. So it was once again a very successful year, and we'd like to thank the coaching staff there for doing a good job of playing our young student athletes. Volleyball team had a great year. They finished 8-2 in the region, 10-5 overall, and hosted a first round playoff match, which I think is the first time this has happened since I have been in Fairfield that we hosted the first round of the playoff match. So we congratulate the girls volleyball team on a wonderful season. Cross country, boys cross country had a great season as well. They finished second in the region, lost the region by only 1 point. I was at that region meet. I thought we would have pulled it off and win it, but we lost by 1 single point. But nonetheless, it was a great season. Joshua Mosley had the fastest time of all students, athletes in the region. In fact, Joshua came in 11th place in the state of South Carolina with a record-setting time of 16 minutes and 53 seconds, which is the fastest time in the history of Fairfield Central High School cross country. And so he will be recognized as an all-state cross-country selection. So, and he's only a junior, and so we are looking for some outstanding things from Josh next year. Girls cross country had an awesome year as well. They finished 3rd in the region. And what is so exciting about the girls cross country team is how young they are. I'll tell you probably at least 1/3 of the girls cross country team in middle school. And so we have quite a ways to go with these young student athletes. They are going to do some tremendous things by the time they are said and done. We'd like to thank Coach Eddie Berto, who has just done a miraculous job with our cross-country program. If you've ever seen him work these young folks out, you understand why they're so good. He's an absolute slave driver out there, I tell you. He worked. he works him hard. So if you're gonna run cross country, you're gonna have to be ready to work because Coach Berto is going to really work you. And you know, it's important to recognize that we were able to have successful seasons even in this era of a pandemic. And lots of people were really concerned whether athletics would be able to continue with COVID-19. And though there were some challenges here or there, for the most part, it was a season that had very few hiccups. And so we continue to be thankful that that has occurred up until this point. We're headed into the spring of the year, and obviously we go into some even closer contact sports like wrestling and soccer and basketball. And so we are prayerful that we can continue to have a successful spring athletic season also. I want to talk a little bit about our question, Pastor Jay.
No, I just wanted to say that all of our athletes, we ought to give them a big round of applause and show our appreciation for all of their hard work.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely. I appreciate those remarks, Pastor Jackson. You know, and I will talk about this a little bit during our first 9-week pulse check, but we have processed 3 rounds of requests for special consideration. Before the year started at the 4.5-week mark and then at the 9-week mark. And these are requests for parents who would like to have their children report for in-person instruction. Almost every day, despite the concerns with the COVID-19 pandemic, I have conversations with parents who say, I'm ready to transition from a virtual model to an in-person model. Initially, I thought that by this point in the year, most parents who wanted their children to report for in-person instruction would have already sought that approval. But we still have some parents out there who say, well, I didn't do it on the first round, I didn't do it on the second round, I didn't do it on the third round, but I still am interested. And so we're going to open up a 4th window of requests for special consideration. We'll start accepting those applications in December, and those students will begin as relates to reporting to school during the beginning of the 3rd 9-week period. And so we won't have any additional students report for in-person instruction as a function of request for special consideration. However, we will process an additional round, which will be the 4th round, and those approved students will begin at the beginning of the 3rd 9th week. Now, people have asked me the question, what if the pandemic gets a whole lot worse, Superintendent? Does that change things? I say the facts on the ground could change things in a second. And right now we're operating in a modified virtual setting. If all of a sudden we determine that it becomes unsafe, then we'll have to reevaluate that. All right. I am assuming that by the 3rd 9 weeks, we'll continue to progress in the manner that we are. Now, I sent out a message on Parent Square just Sunday, reminding parents of the importance of keeping young people home if they have potentially come into contact with the virus. The importance of keeping young people home if someone in that household has come into contact with the virus. And sometimes I think there is some confusion how parents should respond. And so I remind them, if there is an individual in the household who has tested positive, there is a quarantine requirement for every student who is in the household. So you can't simply say, well, this child isn't positive even though someone in the house is positive. That child still needs to quarantine. Also, I'm asking parents that if your child potentially has come into contact with someone who is positive for COVID-19, and you make the decision that you need to have them tested as a result of that potential contact, we ask that you keep them home until you get a negative result. Because we want to be safe versus sorry and recognize that we're trying to maintain a safe environment for every student and staff member in the Fairfield family. And so I will continue to reiterate that. And I think if we continue to respond in a very responsible manner then we'll continue to see a relatively safe environment. Now, I remind people, we can put all the measures and protocols and procedures in place within our school setting, but if we don't necessarily have the same kind of operation outside the school setting, then we're going to have a difficult time maintaining this modified virtual environment. So I ask parents and the community to continue to work with us as we continue to try and to create a very safe and effective environment for the young people that we're serving. What I want to share with you now, and you probably saw it in your board packet, but we're going to put it on the screen. We administered what we call a first 9-week satisfaction survey because we wanted to see how parents felt about the modified virtual format. And I'll tell you, I was relatively pleased with what I saw in the survey. And first of all, you see we had about 455 parents responded to the survey. And obviously that represents potentially up to 1,000 students because some parents have multiple children in the household. But we had about 455 responded to the survey. Okay. So. Okay, as I said, we had all schools had parents who participated in the survey. It was a relatively representative sample. As you see, we had more students from the high school participated than the middle school, more students from the elementary school based on the populations in those respective schools. So the first question said, which instructional delivery model is your child currently participating in? And of the people surveyed, we had about 66% of them said that we are still leveraging the instruction from home virtually. We're probably close to between 35 and 40% of our students who are reporting for in-person instruction. So this is just a sample of the students who completed the survey. This is relatively close to where we are. I probably say we have about 1,000 students right now who report for in-person instruction, which represents between 37 and 40% of the student population. All right, the next question said, in general, how satisfied are you with the district's modified virtual instructional delivery model? I was pleased with what we saw there. We see that 34.4% said they are very satisfied. We had 37.7% who said they are quite satisfied. 20% said they were slightly satisfied, and only 7.6% said that we weren't satisfied at all. And so I would probably assert that some of these not satisfied at all will be probably some who would like to pursue a request for special consideration during the next round. Next question said, in general, how likely are you to continue to allow your child to attend school virtually? You know that we said 46.5% said very likely, 28.8% said likely, 20.8% said somewhat likely, and only 11.9% said not likely at all. So it appears as if most of the people who have chosen the virtual option are pleased with the virtual option. Most of the individuals who've chosen the in-person option are pleased with that as well. Next question said, how confident do you feel about your child's academic progress using the modified virtual instructional delivery model? 30% said very confident, 32.3% said quite confident, 25.1% said slightly confident, and 12.5% said not confident at all. And so once again, I anticipate that 12.5% will be some of the parents we see pursue the fourth round of requests for special consideration. And next question said, if given an option how likely would you allow your child to attend school face-to-face, 5 days a week with social distancing instead of the modified virtual learning instructional model? And basically what we're trying to get to in this question is, if you are currently leveraging the virtual option, how likely are you to change from that and have your young person report to school? And as you can see, 37.4% say not likely at all. So most of those parents who are leveraging the virtual option said if there were an option where I could change from virtual and go in person, 37% said I'm not likely to do that at all. 26.8% said, well, maybe somewhat likely to do it. Only about 13.6% said I'm likely to do it. And then finally, 22% said very likely to do it. And so I like to think that that says to us the overwhelming majority of parents who are leveraging the virtual option are pleased with that option, and if given the option to change, probably would not do so. So probably about 20% of them would actually make the change, it appears. Okay. Next question said, how easy or difficult is it to connect with your child's individual teachers if you need to? I was very pleased with the results that I saw here. We'll see that 52.3% said it was very easy to connect, and then 33.6% said it was quite easy to connect. Only a small percentage said it was quite difficult, and a very small percentage said very difficult. So close to 85% of our parents said that they think it is very easy to connect with a child's individual teachers. So we'd like to thank the teachers for doing an excellent job there. And the final question, no, that's not the final question, but the next question in the survey said, how clear has the communication from the school been? Very similar results. 51% said that it's very clear, 31% said quite clear, only a small percentage said moderately clear, and an even smaller percentage said not clear at all. So we're talking once again about 82% of parents surveyed said that it is extremely clear in terms of communication they're receiving from the school at this point in time. This is a very important question is that from your observation, we start talking about social and emotional well-being. From your observation, how well is your child coping with the current learning format? We see 31% said very well, 35% said quite well, 24.4% said moderately well, and only 8.8% said not well at all. And what I would hope has occurred is, for those parents who feel as if your child is not coping well in the virtual format, that you would pursue options to have them report for in-person instruction, and not just continue to have them struggling. I understand that concern about virus transmission is real, but I like to tell parents that we are doing an excellent job of mitigating some of those risks. And the last question really talks about how parents are coping, because believe it or not, this is probably as stressful on parents as it is on kids. And they said, how well are you coping with your child's current learning format? You see 33% of the parents said that I'm coping well. Another 33% say quite well. 22% say moderately well. And only 10% of them said not well at all. And so we'll continue to support our students in addition to our parents during this very difficult time. Any questions about the satisfaction survey at this time? All right, if there are no questions about the satisfaction survey, Pastor Jackson, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Green. And that takes us down now to curriculum and instruction.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For your approval is the second and final reading of temporary administrative rule JE-R student attendance. And the first reading and approval took place during last month's board meeting. And as a result, there were no changes with the document that is provided for you in board docs.
The one that we're looking at is the final, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So that's JER model F20, is that right?
Yes.
All right, the superintendent recommends that we do the final reading on the student attendance. I'm losing everything now.
Temporary administrative rule, JER.
All right, so is there a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair, I
Harrison,
make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation for the second and final reading, approval of temporary administrative rule, JE-R, student attendance.
that's second.
I'll say,
I've been moved by Ms. Harrison and seconded by Mr. Davis that we accept the superintendent's recommendation. And we are at the point now of discussion. Well, actually, I guess it's at the point where we just vote. Is that right?
So Dr. Jackson, if I may, just to provide a little clarification to Dr. Harris and Ms. Green, since they are new to the board, and give them a little insight in terms of why we felt it was prudent to make this addition. Since we are operating in this whole modified virtual format, attendance is obviously a lot different than it has in the past in terms of documenting whether students are present. In the past, it was always pretty simple. If I see you in your desk, you're here. If you're not at your desk, you are here. In this modified virtual format, now we have some students who are able to leverage instruction virtually. Now we can make asynchronous assignments where we may give students an assignment and give them a credit for completion. So it was important for our attendance policy to reflect the current dynamics on the ground today. And so that's why we felt the need to make some modifications, even on a temporary basis, to our attendance policy, because as long as we're operating in this COVID era, the way we check attendance is going to be a little different than we historically do. So that's just a little background in terms of why changes are coming.
Okay, the changes that we have to consider here in the red, is that right?
Yes.
The changes that were put in here is the modified virtual attendance.
Yes.
Okay, and that says attendance is determined by whether a student logs in daily using the identified virtual platform. Students are expected to participate asynchronously and synchronously. And attendance will be taken daily by the classroom teacher. Additionally, attendance is determined by whether a student submits work and participates in activities assigned by the teacher. Students who submit work on a timely basis as determined by the teacher and participate as instructed will be considered present. Students who do not turn in assignments and do not participate in modified virtual learning activities as set forth in classroom procedures will be considered absent. So those words are added to the policy, and it is what we are considering at this time. So is there a motion to go ahead and approve this?
Motion.
Already motion.
Oh, and motion and second, and we have to be ready to vote.
Yes.
Okay, is there some discussion? Because this is our last chance. All right, then we call for the question. All those in favor of passing this student attendance rule, please signify by raising your right hand. That's 7-0. So it is.
The second item for your approval this evening is the asynchronous remote learning days. And these these proposed asynchronous remote learning days would take place beginning on November 30th, pending board approval. On remote learning days, students will complete assignments at home and will not report to school face-to-face for instruction. During this time, teachers will work remotely from home while conducting small group and individual instruction, hold parent and or student conferences, and use this time to plan effectively for instruction. Attendance on the asynchronous learning days will be determined by whether a student submits work on a timely basis as determined by the teacher, and also reflected based upon the temporary administrative rule you all just approved. The dates indicated are proposed for asynchronous remote learning days are November 30th, December 22nd, January 29th, February 26th, March 19th, April 30th, and May 28th. A copy of an updated 2020-2021 academic calendar has been included, which indicates the proposed asynchronous remote learning dates.
All right, are there any questions regarding the remote learning days?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation that we approve these remote learning days?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Ms. Harris,
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation for the board to approve the 2020-2021 proposed asynchronous remote learning days.
is there a second?
Second such motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for the remote learning days. Now, are we ready for a question? Discussion, yes.
Yeah, and I could just provide a little insight in terms of why this recommendation is coming forward. As I said earlier, working in this whole new COVID era has been very difficult for students and staff. One thing that we saw after evaluating the student performance after the first 9 weeks was that grades really were having some students having some challenges because they weren't completing some of the assignments. And as we work, particularly in a virtual environment, and students are struggling to navigate this whole new environment, some of them were having a difficult time really completing all of the assignments that they were being given, which was adversely impacting their grades. Additionally, when we ask teachers to teach in a virtual and in-person environment, it is a very difficult task. And so we felt it would be a wise decision on our part to create some opportunities where they could teach kind of asynchronously and not necessarily have to battle between these two environments every single day of the year. And so you'll see that we're only adding about 1 day a month of an asynchronous day. And so when you compare asynchronous to synchronous, asynchronous simply means it is kind of real-time instruction, where students have to be on, teachers are delivering direct instruction. And asynchronous day means that teachers can make assignments and not necessarily be there to give real-time instruction, where students can complete those assignments on their own. Now, students won't have to report to school on those asynchronous days, and teachers will not have to report to school on those asynchronous days. Teachers will be able to schedule maybe group conferences if they need some small group, one-on-one conferences if they need to work with individuals remotely, or just simply give students an opportunity to catch up on the multitude of things that they have got behind on. And so we think this is a win-win for all involved, to include parents, students, and staff who are struggling to keep up with this totally new environment that we're working on. So I want to give you a little context as to how we came to the conclusion that it's important that we kind of modify the calendar. And I remind people that working in this era of COVID-19, there are many things that you don't know until you get into it. So people say, why did you do that at the beginning of the year? Well, we didn't know we needed to do it at the beginning of the year. And so you monitor and adjust. And as you observe things, you watch some of the struggles that students are having, you watch some of the struggles that staff are having, and then you try and create some adjustments that accommodate some of those struggles. So that is the rationale for why we decided that we needed to modify the calendar, add a little more latitude in the schedule to give students a little more opportunity to complete work and give teachers an opportunity to not necessarily be overwhelmed with having to produce a synchronous lesson every single day. Are there any questions? I want to give you a little context as to how we came to the decision to make this proposal. Thank you, sir.
I am glad you gave us some insight into that because there may have been some questions and obviously I guess I didn't do what y'all are presenting there. So I thank you for that. All right. Are we ready for the question now? All those in favor of passing the remote learning days as recommended by the superintendent, please raise your right hand. That's 7-0. Thank you very much. That brings us to operational finance.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In your board packets this evening under operations and finance, you have the finance report. And just briefly for the benefit of our new members, new board members, Ms. Green and Dr. Harris, I will, I told Dr. Green earlier today, I'll reach out to you soon to go into a little bit more detail about this report and some of the major issues in finance. But I will just give you a brief explanation. This is a report that's presented to the board every month. And there are just a memo, and along with 3 reports, there's a overview report that says board financial statement. And then we have a detailed report of our revenue and a detailed expenditure report. By far, the most important report is the financial statement, that first schedule, because it really provides a nice, neat summary of our financial condition as of the previous month. So this report is for the month of October. And if you'll just turn to that report, and it says schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, budgets and actual, and it's for the 4 months ended October 31st, 2020. And the first part of that report has a summary of our revenues, comparing the budget for the year to what we've actually received year to date, along with the difference. And then in the section below that, we have our different categories of expenditures, along with the budget for the year and what we've spent year to date, and just the difference between those numbers. And then the third section lists the transfers. Transfers are amounts that we have in other pots of funds that are transferred into our general fund budget. And that lists the budget for the year and any transfers year to date. So that's really what gives you just an overview of our finances for the month, every month. And then, as I said, there are 2 other reports that just have a little bit more detail supporting this report. And the report is never submitted for action, it's just submitted for information for the board. And so typically when I present it, I just bring the report to the board, and if there are any questions or comments, then we'll take those at this time.
I'd like to say that when I came aboard as a board member, I sat with you in your office.
Yes.
And you explained a lot of stuff to me. It might be a good idea for that to happen with these 2 new board members. That's just a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for finance? Here, no. Thanks, sir.
Sir,
Certified Human Resources.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the board. Under Human Resources, item 1, the superintendent recommends the board approve professional certified educators for academic year 2020-21. This is presented to you in Exhibit 1.
All right, the superintendent recommends that we approve the personnel in Exhibit 1. Is there a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion, we set the superintendent recommendation to approve professional certified educators for academic year 2021, Exhibit 1.
Yes, sir.
I second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Harrison, second by Mr. Davis, that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the personnel in Exhibit 1. Personnel, there's no question, no discussion, so all those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
Next item for Human Resources is item 2, where the superintendent recommends the board approve second and final reading for the revision of policy GBAA, employee sex, gender discrimination, and harassment. The information associated with this recommendation is presented to you in Exhibits 2A, 2B, and 2C, with 2C being the final outline for the revisions.
Okay, then I would assume then that we need to deal with 2C. Is that right?
That is the final outline, yes, sir. 2A is the original policy, 2B are the proposed revisions, and then 2C is what it looks like when it's final, if it meets your approval.
All right. Superintendent recommends that the board approve second and final reading for revision of policy GBAA, which is employee sex, gender discrimination, and harassment. Is there a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Harrison.
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve second and final reading for revision of policy GBAA, employee sex, gender discrimination, and harassment, Exhibit 2A, 2B, and 2C.
All right, is there a second?
A second.
Been moved by Ms. Harrison, second by Mr. Seals, that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for the final reading for revision of policy GBAA, which is employee sex, gender discrimination, and harassment. You ready for the question? Any discussion?
Pastor Jackson, if I could, just about a little clarification to our new board members. You can read it in your board information, but just give you a quick summary. The federal government made some changes to the Title IX policy, which impacts the policies that we are discussing now. Once those changes have been implemented by the federal government, it is incumbent upon us to make sure our policies are in alignment with those new changes. So it's not that we did not have sexual harassment policies prior to these changes, but we're just making sure we're in compliance with all of the federal regulations. So that's why we're making this change. Thanks, sir.
All right. Vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
Last item is being presented to the board for approval, second and final reading of new policy JIAA, student gender, sex, gender discrimination, and harassment. This is presented to you in Exhibit 3, and the changes from last month to this month is the code that is assigned to this new policy, JIAA.
All right, the superintendent recommends that we approve the new policy JIAA student sex, gender discrimination and harassment. Got a motion,
Mr. Vice Chair,
Harrison,
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve second and final reading of new policy, JIAA, student sex, gender discrimination and harassment, exhibit 3.
and second.
A second.
Been moved by Ms. Harrison, second by Mr. Davis, and we approve the superintendent's recommendation for the new policy, final reading, student sex, gender discrimination and harassment. Are you ready to vote? All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. All right, thank you. That comes down to the board chair report, and the only thing I see on here is I think that the meetings for the year, and you looked at that several times, so David, anything else that I have? Bill Miller,
Yes, sir.
it says board chair report, do you have anything?
No, sir. You handle it. You handle it. Go ahead and finish it out.
All right, there's no other agenda items. I don't believe we need to go back to the executive session. So there are motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
A second.
Moving second that we adjourn. All in favor?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you already got yourself down there? Yes, sir.
Oh, Lord, baby.